Hello, Trauma Thrivers. Welcome to this week's live and podcast if you're listening to it later. I'm Lula Benson. I'm the founder of Trauma Thrivers. And today I'm delighted to have with me Elizabeth Burton Phillips, MBE, who is the founder of DrugFam, which I will go on to talk to you about in a minute, and that I've known for, a number of years now. It might be nearly 15 years, or
I would say so.
I think it's a long time, Elizabeth. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
We're going to be talking about DrugFam and what you do. Elizabeth's charity, which she founded in 2006, after very tragically losing one of her sons to suicide in 2004, was set up specifically to support those that have been bereaved due to addiction. And I think I read in your press release, Elizabeth, that one of us in 10 in the UK are affected by somebody else's addiction, which is
so true. Yes.
Pretty high numbers. So
it is high. Yes.
So Elizabeth, as long as her many accolades, has been awarded an MBE by the Queen, and she's also author of Mum, Can You Lend Me 20 Quid, which has been translated into many different languages. And
yes, amazing.
Yeah, which is brilliant. And she's campaigned continuously to raise an awareness and done an incredibly amazing job. And we're going to talk at the end of the interview just about DrugFam and the annual conference, which is coming up in October, Saturday the 8th, I believe, that I'd really like to, you to talk more about, Elizabeth. But welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What a career and what a history and what an amazing thing that you're doing, because there are a lot of people struggling with addiction out there, and that means an awful lot of family members too.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, yes.
And I wonder, before you got involved in this work, whether there was anything very much around in the early days for you and what happened for you. What did you find? Gosh, it's almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. Or
yeah, that's right. Yes. Yeah. It's I think looking back now on those times when we as a family were going through addiction with two boys, twins, using, and as a professional teacher, I was very aware of the word stigma, judgment, and I think that I learned from looking back. Hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? But you look back on your behaviors at the time, and what you do is, by isolating yourself and keeping it a secret because of the stigma, you can't then break the stigma. And you push yourself into a place of isolation, and you push yourself into a place of loneliness where it's almost as if you're holding a guilty secret from those around you. But I do remember very, very clearly being so desperate to get some help, not just for the boys, but also for myself, that I just didn't know where to turn. I can't remember what Google was like all those years ago in 2004, whether it even existed. But the one thing I do remember was ringing the Samaritans, and they were always there to listen.
Amazing.
So I've always, had such respect for them. And I still remember to the day the name of the lady who used to, she had a special number that I could ask for her if she wanted to ring me. And I do really value that time that they gave me through those difficult years. But apart from that, I can't remember very much at all in terms of support. I do remember going, because I live in Reading, going down the Oxford Road to a centre where addicts could get help. And I remember knocking on the door and asking if there was help for them or help for me. And the guy looked at me and said, "Why would you need help? What's it got to do with you? What's it got to do with you?" And I said, "Well, I'm their mother."
Yeah.
but he didn't get it. He said, well, we're here to help the addict, but tell them to come to us, and that's fine, but sorry, you
Yeah.
know, we don't understand what it's got to do with you. But I think it's wonderful that behaviors have changed,
Yeah.
support mechanisms have changed, coping strategies have changed. And of course, the thrust of this charity of mine, established after Nicholas passed away, was that, you know, we want to be there to support the family members whose lives are blighted by not knowing how to cope with addiction, so that when they find us, they're in a non-judgmental, safe, comfortable, confidential space that they can say what they like.
Yeah.
You know, that's really where we are with that.
Yeah, and obviously you set it up off the back of your own bereavement and what happened to you and what you've been through, wanting to put that support in place for other people that were probably in a similar position back then, without a charity or without any specific help that was similar to you.
Indeed, yes. I mean, obviously one of the things that will stay in my mind forever is the police knocking on my door on the 19th of February 2004 and saying, I'm so sorry, your son is dead. And it was a very young, two young police officers. And I think what a difficult job for them as young police officers to deliver. And then, you know, having to say he's taken his life and his brother has found him. You know, and I almost felt like saying, well, sit down, can I make you two a cup of tea? You know, how awful to deliver that news.
Yeah.
But it's how, if you're in that situation, particularly when you've got two family members who, you know, have been twins and who have been so close through good times and bad times, that you then suddenly realize grief versus relief. You know, on the one hand, you've lost one, but on the other hand, you're just grateful that you've got the other one.
Yeah.
And it's how you process the shocking news of a son dying by suicide and finding a path forward for yourself as a mother and as a family, whereby you come to your own emotional closure, that, you know, having got counselling, having the right support in place for you as a bereaved mother, that you can then start something to do to help other people. And you know, that is an emotional journey that you go on with the support of a really good counsellor.
Yeah. And did you have one?
Oh yes, most definitely. Yes, most definitely. I will always be enormously grateful to my doctor, because obviously I went to see the doctor and said to him what had happened, and he obviously knew my late son and my surviving son, and he said, I will set you up some counselling. He referred me to local counselling services, and it was the best thing that happened. The lady that I saw her once a week for probably 18 months.
Yeah.
And she was brilliant. I have no idea what technique method she used, but she was really good. I completely trusted her. And I knew when that time with her was coming to an end, because I didn't feel the desire to come and see her every week.
Yeah.
And she got my head into a position of emotional strength, really, and
Amazing.
resilience. Yeah.
And can I ask, because I'm sure people listening will be wanting to ask this question, what happened to your other son? How was he because of it and through it?
Yes, very, very difficult for him, because as twins, they were so close and did everything together. But the death of his twin was like he came to a crossroads, and he knew that if he continued, he could easily go down that route as well, in the sense that the use of drugs could kill him. Or, you know, he could get so desperate that he might even take his own life. And so we had a long conversation about how we could support one another as bereaved mother and bereaved son. And that's eventually why the book came out, because we wanted to share the story. But he made the decision that in his brother's memory, he would not use again. And that required medication for him to come off heroin and move forward without using methadone or any of the other substances, you know, that you can use to come off. And I'm very pleased to say, you know, 18 years later, he is in a very good place.
Yeah. How lovely. Wonderful. Thank God.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And does he get involved at all with the charity, or is that solely your
Well,
shit?
he's involved in the sense that you can't see him, but he's involved with the technical side of things like the
Okay.
website and setting up email addresses for people, because we have a lot of volunteers as well as members of staff. And so anything to do with the techie side he's involved with. But he decided, although he is a trustee, he decided that he needed to move forward with his own life without him being known as the brother of the twin that took his
Yeah.
life. He wanted to have like to let go of the past, and he sees his role as a practical support, because he's very good with techie stuff, stuff that I haven't got a clue.
Join the club. Yeah. And forming your own identity and all of that.
Yes, very important for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
would be important. So if somebody is listening to this and they are struggling with any family member that has an addiction, is in addiction, what are the main things that you would say to somebody that came to the charity, or to somebody that was listening that was right in the middle of it still, and didn't know what to do themselves to help or where they should go? Are there any words of wisdom that you offer to those that come to the charity with somebody who maybe isn't bereaved, but their son or daughter or husband or wife, whoever, cousin, is still right in the grips of addiction?
Yes, Lou, that's a really good question. Yes, I mean, my main message to start with is don't be on your own. Pick up the phone or email us. So email us on support@drugfam.co.uk, resting assured that we will be completely confidential with the information that you give us, or ring us on 0300 888 3853. We're here 9 till 9, 365 days a year. So that's the practical thing. But once you've made that decision that you need to ring us and get some help, then there are all sorts of things that we can look at that will help you. For example, a family member may ring up and say, I know that I'm enabling. I know that I'm codependent. I know that I have no boundaries. And these are key words that we like to work with clients, understanding what a boundary is and how you have to stand by a boundary if you're going to put it in place, or if there's a codependent relationship, or even a one that has become very manipulative. We like to talk through with the clients the different strategies that they can think about. And for many family members, if you say to them, you do have a choice, they're actually like, really? It's actually understanding they do have a choice. They don't have to be backed into a corner. And enabling and the manipulation that can go with that is something that we like to really talk them through. And each client that comes to us, whether it's on the phone or through an email, is an individual. So we can't apply a strategy that we might apply to somebody who perhaps just can't cope and can't stop giving money. We can't apply that strategy to somebody perhaps who really wants to stop giving money, wants to stop enabling. So we look at them individually and work with them. I would say that things for us as a charity have changed hugely because of COVID, in the sense that, because I live in Berkshire, the charity was originally founded, and it's registered to my home address here. It was originally founded here in the Wokingham area. So we were a Berkshire-based charity with a head office in High Wycombe, reaching really bucks, barks and oxen. So that was our geographical remit, in the sense that all our meetings, all our support meetings were all in physical spaces. But of course, post-COVID, it's a very different scenario, because now we're working with, for example, on a Monday evening, I'm part of a support group that used to be in Witney in Oxfordshire. It's called Witney National Group. And into Witney National Group come people from all over the country, as well as from Witney. We even have 2 clients that come into us from Malta.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
I was
yeah.
going to ask you earlier, actually, because, you know, people listening to this might not be in the UK.
Mm.
You know, what happens if people are outside of the UK or in Malta? Can they still contact you? Can they still?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Again, it's
Okay.
support at drugfam.co.uk, but we have group on a Tuesday evening, for example. That's very interesting how that's worked out, in the sense that um, they have clients in there that come in from America. I think it's about lunchtime or something in America. And the reason that happened was because during COVID, Russell Brand, who's a great supporter of our charity, did an interview with me about, you know, what it's like to be a family member affected by addiction. And
Yeah.
that his team put that out, and it went out all over the place. And we had
Yeah.
people coming into us from Australia, from Mexico, from America, you know, and
Okay.
similar problems. So the Tuesday night group is known as the Anglo-American group. And we've got a group on a Sunday morning as well, you
Right.
know, which is wonderful. I think the only night of the week that we don't operate with a group is Saturday night,
Okay.
because, you know, I think it's important that our staff and volunteers do have
Yeah.
that space. But there's
Okay.
always telephone support.
Yeah. Yeah. And this not just for people who have been bereaved, is it
That's right.
just for people who have been bereaved by addiction?
Know that the charity works with those who are affected by
Okay.
a loved one's use of drugs, alcohol, and gambling.
Okay.
And often the conversations, certainly I've been on the phones when the husband or the mother would say, you know, he's got a drink problem, he's got a drug problem. Oh, yeah, and also he gambles. As almost as if it's like, oh, and by the way, but actually the
Yeah.
gambling is entrenched within the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So we work with those who are affected by and those who are bereaved by, and as I say, do a lot of educational work in schools, helping young people to understand that their actions and consequences can impact hugely on their family.
Yeah. Of course they can. And what's your thought? Because, you know, obviously addiction and drugs and gambling and all the rest of it, and, you know, having worked in addiction at the Priory for a long time, you know, I saw the whole gamut of, you know, other strategies that we use, you know, whether it's codependency or whether it's, you know, sex and love, or whether it's food, you know, do you see the charity at some point covering all addictions, process and substances, or really just sticking to the kind of alcohol, drugs, gambling more?
I personally think that I mean, it's a discussion that I've had with our chief CEO, Paul Rampani, and I think he and I are on the same page that what we do really well.
Yeah.
And we don't have experience of working with people with sex addiction, people
Yeah.
with food addictions. And I respect that all of those people need to support us, as do the family members. But I think we'll stick with what we do
What
well.
you do. Yeah.
What I would like, and I know that Paul, our CEO, would like this too, is that we grow so that we're helping, instead of helping 5,000 people a year, we're helping more people, more and more people, and that we grow different hubs, if you like,
Yes.
so that we're able to run things virtually, but also to offer people those opportunities to meet once again in person.
Yeah.
Because quite a lot of people have asked us, where because of COVID, we've had to move to Teams or to Zoom. Oh, is there any chance we can actually meet back in person like we used to do at the office or at this particular hub, or so on? So I think we want to explore that.
Yeah. There's nothing
Well,
like being in person,
yeah,
really, sometimes, is there? And that kind of
that's right.
connection piece and element. And, you know,
Yes,
obviously aware that my previous life was mainly addiction and now my life is mainly trauma. Where are you seeing the links for you and DrugFam between addiction and trauma? What are your thoughts on that, Elizabeth?
significant links. A lot of, by the time people contact us, whether they are bereaved or affected by, they are traumatized.
Yeah.
That is for sure. They're traumatized because perhaps they've seen things, for example, a loved one injecting, or a loved one both drunk and injecting.
Yeah.
Perhaps they've seen somebody who's taken their life. Perhaps they've seen how it's impacted and on their own children or family members, and they're worried about the damage that it's done to the younger members of the family. So they're very much trauma is what we hear all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's traumatized by the addiction and what's actually happening in the
Yes.
current moment, isn't it? Because
Yes.
use is traumatic in and of itself.
Yes.
And what do you think about trauma potentially being a causal factor for addiction? That those that have underlying trauma then go on to use substances?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we do hear that and talk to quite a lot of clients about that. Many families have said to me, you know, my son or my daughter went undiagnosed for many months because they had ADHD or they had autism or they had this or that or the other, and they started self-medicating because they found that by using a spliff or by, you know, getting on their face on MDMA or using cocaine, that it was a coping mechanism, and then they found themselves in addiction. So it's a very causal link. It's powerful.
So you're all getting together in a big room very soon.
We are indeed.
About that, what's happening? Tell us more about that.
Well, having had 2 conferences online, we decided we're all Zoomed and teamed out. So we made the decision that we would have a physical conference, in-person physical conference on Saturday, the 8th of October, and that we would, we discussed at length the title. The title is The Impact of Grief on the families, because of addiction, the impact of grief on family life. And to that extent, I discussed it with my CEO, but I said, let's bring in family members who can talk from the heart, as well as professionals who can talk from the heart about their own experiences. So we have 2 professionals. One is Dr. Sangeeta Mahajan, who lost her son to suicide, and she's an anaesthetist. So she's going to share her story. She has a video to share. She's going to talk about suicide. She's done a lot of work on that. And we have another professional who is a counsellor who's done a lot of work with both the family members and with addicts as well. He's going to talk about it from a therapeutic point of view. And then we have a gentleman talking about the loss of his partner during COVID to alcoholism, another lady talking about the loss of her daughter, a very brave couple are going to talk about losing 2 sons to addiction, which is tough. Another young lady talking about the loss of her brother. So we've got a mixed bag of people who are going to talk from the heart, and we're just finishing them, if you like, the master PowerPoint now and getting that all ready. Saturday, the 8th of October. So we'll have about 100 people there in person. And we have given the option of coming in online, because we appreciate that if you're in Scotland or the Orkney Isles, you can't, you know, well, you can if you want, you're very welcome. But it is a long way away.
Yeah, it is a long way. And, you know, just I wanted to ask you, really, just on that last point, is since COVID and everything that's been happening, how have you as a charity seen what's going on out there in terms of addiction? Has it escalated, in your opinion, and seemed to get worse?
Yes, I would say so, in the sense that when we went into lockdown on the 20th of March, 23rd of March, we had a sort of telephone calls going on saying, what we're going to do, how we're going to manage this. And then somebody said, have you heard of Zoom? So that's how come that happened, that we were able to communicate. But what we then began to see was, through our email and through our telephone service, we began to see this rise in deaths. And it was up 150% from within 2020. And I know, because I write to every single bereaved person and send them a copy of our handbook and details about how we can support them. So we saw a massive rise, and family members telling us that he's been drinking a lot more, or she's been using a lot more, or gambling a lot more, because we know what lockdown was like. It was really tough, wasn't it? There was a point where we couldn't even go out for a walk.
Exactly.
And people who were undiagnosed with mental health issues were using more and more and more. And then, of course, you get that terrible tragedy, because family members are going through their own bereavements without even a death, in the sense that they've lost that person that they once remember. And then
Yeah.
you get this final death. We had a lady who emailed in to say that her son went out and scored drugs and used pure cocaine, snorted it, and dropped dead on the bathroom floor. Well, I mean, those people are shocked, in trauma, and so on. So it's like really shocking
Yeah.
what's happened.
Yeah.
It's evened out now, in the
Good.
sense that obviously we still are sadly receiving lots of bereavement calls and requests for information, but it has evened out more.
Good.
I think we've had something like, so for example, in 2020, I can confirm that we had 150 deaths.
Right.
Last year it was something like 69, and this year it's about 38.
Oh,
And two things stay in my mind from this year alone is 1 week. I said to my colleagues, whoa, what's going on here? But 12 deaths in 1 week, 12. And another week we had 6. Whereas
right.
normally we perhaps might have 1,
Yeah.
maybe 2. But
Yeah.
there's since that we go through these phases where, there's a spike.
Yeah. It feels like there's a lot going on for people, and there's a lot going on even post-COVID. And now that we've got the kind of economic doom and gloom and everything else,
I know.
it's more pressure on people.
Yes.
And drugs and alcohol and everything are an escape, aren't they?
They are indeed. Yes.
And suicide being sadly the ultimate, but
Yes.
not an escape for anybody in the family.
No, because we have to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, tragically. So how many do you expect at the conference? And how do people find out more, really? Because I've even got clients that I'm thinking of now, this would really, really help them actually, to come
Well,
and be with you and see you and share in this kind of collective community that you.
yes, absolutely. Yes. Well, I can email you the details for purchasing a ticket through Ticket Tailor. We have
Great.
100 spaces, and I think we're up to 70. But
Okay.
we do know that those spaces will go, because there are always the last minute people that come in. So on our website there are some details about joining the conference, but I can send you
Great.
specific details, both for in person. It's
Yeah.
£55, or online is £25. But the £55
Wow.
gives you a nice meal, lots and
Yeah.
lots of teas and coffees and breaks, and
Yeah.
food throughout the day.
That's incredibly reasonable.
It
Yeah.
is very reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've worked with
Whereabouts
this.
are you holding it?
It's at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Gerrards Cross, which is
Okay.
easy to get to from Marylebone, because it's on that line down to High Wycombe. And yeah, so we've got some really good hotel that we're going to go back to, that's served us very well in the past.
Brilliant. And here's to, I don't know, next year or the year after or whatever,
Yeah.
people coming from all over the world to the conference.
Maybe
Or
yeah.
international.
Yes, maybe that
What
would be
now for you, Elizabeth? What do you want to go on and continue to do? What's your aims really now?
Well, I've got a wonderful CEO. We've got a great head of operations, and so on. And they are in charge of the charity. They will lead the charity forward. I just want to see my bereavement team grow, so that rather than just being dependent upon me and a colleague, that we will grow and have a bigger team of trained people who will be able to manage. When a young person of 28 emails us and says, can you help me? My father's died, my brother's died. They've got multiple losses in the family. So we have got training in place going on, and that team is expanding, and all of that team, I think we're moving from 2 to 7. All of that team will be at the conference as well.
Great, great. Is there anything else that we've missed, do you think, that you would like to say to anybody that's listening to this, either through bereavement of a relative or through having lost that relative because they're still in active addiction? Are there any other words that you'd like to end with, or any thoughts? Or
well, I think the best thing to do would be, if anybody listening would like to speak to me personally, I'm very happy if they want to email me at elizabeth@drugfam.co.uk, and that email will then come directly through to me. And if there's anything they want to share, any help that they might need, I'm more than happy to do that. Or they can go into support@drugfam.co.uk and it'll still come to me. But my key message is, break the stigma, don't be on your own, pick up the phone, and seek support that you rightly deserve.
yeah, thank you. Very brilliant message, and hopefully lots of people will get some hope from that and some encouragement. Yes. Because, you know, addiction and loves isolation, doesn't it? It kind of, it lives in isolation, and as family members, connecting with others that are going through it, connecting with a community, not being on your own is just, it's the vital tools, isn't it, of recovery? Is, yeah. Really.
Yeah. So it's very important. Don't be on your own.
Thank you. And thank you
so much, Lou.
Oh, pleasure. Lovely to see you, and thank you for joining us. And good luck with the conference. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and there are bits that are going to be filmed, and I'll send them on to you.
Oh yeah, that would be fantastic. And if I don't see you there, hopefully see you soon and catch up.
Yes, that'd be really nice. Be lovely. Thank you.
Thanks for all you do. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.